I'm really happy and glad that there's such a big crowd today, and I'm also glad to present today the information about a professional traineeship. It's actually the first time that the Architect Register is present at this university for students. And it's also good that registration has become an important issue for students. My name is Henk Döll. I'm a member of the board of the Register and also practicing architect. Just a second. I will explain first some general information because I don't know exactly. Some of you may know a little bit about the architect's title in the Netherlands and the Architect's Registration Bureau, but some will not. So first I have some general information. The Dutch architect's title was established first in 1988 and has recently been changed by Parliament in 2010. And there were various changes. I will not explain them all. But the most important is the new professional traineeship. Now, I must make clear that our bureau does not organize this, but we define the constraints and the regulations, and we give information. The Architect Register, actually, when we're talking about architects, we're talking about 4 different disciplines: architecture, urban planning, town and landscape architecture, and interior architecture. Altogether, there are approximately 14,000 registered architects of these 4 disciplines in the Netherlands. And just to give you an idea, the number of lawyers registered in the Netherlands is about 17,000, so that's pretty comparable in a way. Another thing that is maybe good to know for you is that, of course, there's a lot of difficulties finding a job these days, and there's a lot of people who say, well, there are too many architects in the Netherlands. Well, as a matter of fact, that is not quite true. If you compare to other European countries, we have around 0.6 architects per 1,000 inhabitants in this country, 0.6. Belgium or Germany, it's 1.2, so double. The European average is about 0.9. So if you just look at these figures, there are not so many architects. Until now, you can register if you have done one of the proper educations, and it's presented in this slide. And 3 of them are universities, so Delft, Eindhoven, and Wageningen for the landscape architects. Now get to the professional traineeship. This has been by law after a period of about 10 years of experiments. So the former chief architect from the Netherlands, Jo Koenen, started this debate in about 2002. And since then, there has been a lot of experiments with it. And in the end, it was laid down in the Act. The last 3 years, we have, as an architects register, we have been working on a set of regulations. We have to do that according to this Act. So this has been finished. In this period that we were working on that, we had many meetings with all kinds of stakeholders, also with students and young architects, and there were many debates. Why this professional traineeship? Well, there are various reasons that the government decided to implement this. One of the direct reasons was that there was a gap between education and practice. And a lot of things you have to know in practice, or a lot of skills you need in practice, you don't learn in your education. And in most cases, an academic education is not proper for that. That was one important reason. Another important reason was to match with other international standards, especially in Europe, but not only in Europe. Just to compare, on the left-hand side you see until now the situation in the architect's profession. You see, so the blue part is the practical traineeship period, which is, for instance, in Belgium or the UK, is 2 years. In the United States, even 3 years. And so far in the Netherlands, we didn't have it. You can also compare it to other professions, like a lawyer or accountant, or even medicine people, and they have also 1, 2, 3, or even more years practical traineeship before they can practice their profession. So why is this important for you? It's not only because then you can use the architect's title, but what I personally think is most important is that you get in this period accelerated acquisition of experience and knowledge. So that has also been the practice with the so-called program experiment, which has been on a voluntarily basis in the past years, that people in this 2-year period get much faster their experience. Continue. So far about, let's say, a little bit background information about why this professional traineeship why this professional traineeship is standard for everybody after 1st of January 2015. You can read more in one of the brochures you may download from our website. Now, what is this period about? What must you do? First of all, well, actually, this period of 2 years contains about 2 things. You have to work, you have to have a job, and you have to follow what we call modules. Now, there has been a lot of misunderstanding about these modules because it's a little bit different than in education. A module is not a large set of work. A module can be just 1 day or 2 days. But it is modules which are trainings, courses, or other events to acquire additional knowledge, understanding, and skills, and which is also very important to reflect on your practice while you're working. How do you manage that? Of course, you have to take care that you have a job or that you are self-employed. So you don't have to work in an office or, for instance, for urban planners at the municipality. You can also have your own office or work freelance, but you have to have work. You have to find a so-called mentor, which is a person, an architect who has been at least registered for 3 years in an office that will probably be your boss. It doesn't have to be, but that seems logic. And when you're self-employed, you have to find a mentor yourself. You may know some people, but for those who can't find a mentor, there will be a list available, I'll explain that later, where you can try to find a mentor. And you have to make a personal progress plan. You have to make a plan what you're going to do in these 2 years. And in this plan, it's open how you do it, but in this plan you have to show what you are going to do, also in your personal situation. So it may be that on some of the aspects you know already a lot, and on others you don't. So that is basically up to you, as long as you fulfill in the end the requirements. I'll come back to that later. And you have to apply at the Architect Registration Bureau or through a provider of an integrated program. I'll explain that afterward. Because you have to, the next step is actually you have to choose one of 2 options of this additional track. So you're working, you have the additional track, then you have to choose, because it's possible that you follow what we call an integrated program. Juliette Sanders is going to explain more about that. Or follow an independent route. So choose your own ways. In both options, is both for people who work in an office, but also people who work on their own. You have to keep a logbook in this 2-year period, and at the end you have to meet the regulations of what we call the required standards, or in Dutch eindtermen. This is shortly how it works. So you have your diploma, you apply for this traineeship, you choose yourself between the integrated program and the independent route, and in many ways they're very comparable. In both situations you have at the beginning an intake meeting where you present your personal progress plan, then you may get some advice about that. Then you start working, then halfway you have an interim meeting where you can discuss how things are going, and maybe there have been some changes in the plan. And at the end, you have a final meeting. That is in both the options the same. And after that, after the final meeting, you can get registered. A few things about this integrated program. That is a complete program by an authorized provider. So there's an authorized provider. We have to authorize this provider, and you can follow the complete program there. It has all the elements of the program, and especially about the so-called additional track. But they can also take into account personal experience and circumstances. And in this integrated program, there are also coordinators available who can advise you in between. So far, there's one integrated program, the so-called BEP, and Juliette will explain a bit afterwards how this works. So that's the integrated program. Then we have what we call the independent route. There you have to develop your own path and also find your own way with the help of your mentor. You have to choose these modules from various providers. So there are different providers where you can follow modules. You can follow your own personal experience and circumstances, and you have intake, interim and final meetings with a committee. In this route, there are no coordinators or other advisors available, so you have to really do it by yourself. BNA is one of the providers of these separate modules, so you can follow a training or a course there, and there will be some more available, and we will publish that on the website later. Now, one of the main issues and questions we had from students, and which was also a point of attention from the very beginning, is what about the costs? because you have to pay for it. The integrated program has one, you could say, fixed fee, so one total fee. And in the independent route, you have to pay the cost of the modules you follow, but you have some freedom to choose models. And you have to pay for the meetings with the committee. That is the cost, and we are still trying to get them as low as possible. Next question is how to finance these costs. You have to pay for these costs, but can you get it financed somewhere, partly or in total? For people who are self-employed, so entrepreneurs, they have possibilities of tax incentives. People who work in an office can ask their employer to contribute to the costs. And in the past, many have done so. For people who are very talented, and you all are, but there is a possibility to get a fund at the Stimuleringsfonds in the Netherlands. And at this moment, there's an application at the Ministry of Welfare for extra funding by the government, which will, if they accept this, we will hear it at the end of this month, that would cover about 50% of the costs. Well, who can help you? We are there, of course, to help you. We can, well, at least we can answer questions. And there are many other, the provider of integrated program, but also other providers, and also at the university. We will have, probably starting in October or November, on ArchiNet, there will be a separate open platform for anything which has to do with the practical traineeship. So like there will be a list of the mentors, there will be an overview of modules, there will be possibly work on the site, published on the site. There is also room for announcements and also for debate. So if you have, you can also start questions and debate there. Talking about questions, we have already, of course, we have received many questions, and all the time are receiving questions. We are also discussing that with some sort of advisory board from different students. On our website, you will see many frequently asked questions, so you can look over there. I just picked out some of the questions. So, for instance, people often ask, can I get exemptions? In Dutch, vrijstellingen. The answer is, in general, you can. There are various possibilities. For instance, if you have done a specific item already, either you have worked in an office or maybe you followed a course at the university on a specific item, then you can get some exemptions. But in the end, you have to meet what we call the required standards or the eindtermen. Another question, you have to make a personal progress plan at the beginning, but many people ask, well, can I change that during the 2-year period? Yes, you can. So it's more like, let's say, an idea what you're going to do, and you don't literally have to stick to that. You can change in between. Often in 2 years period, your situation also changed, your working situation, as long, again, as at the end you fulfill the requirements. How do I get a mentor? As I said earlier, you have to choose it by yourself. So you don't get a mentor appointed, so you can also choose. So it's, as you are a student, it's, I would recommend that you get a lot of architects in your network, so then, you can pick out the people you like. So you have to choose it, but in the end, if you don't succeed, there are some options to help you. We have already a list of people, of registered architects who are willing to be a mentor for a younger architect. Can I do the program in English? Well, you can. I'm also presenting today in English, especially for the foreign students. You can you can do it in English. You can do your PPP in English, meetings, logbook. There may be some texts in Dutch while you're practicing. We can't help that, but you can do in English as much as possible. And also the question has been, which is often there is, can I work abroad? Yes, you can. So it's not necessarily to stay in the Netherlands, as long as you have a mentor. And the meetings with the committee, so that is, let's say, once a year, if you do it in the 2 years. Those are in the Netherlands, so you have to come over for that. But for other things, you can follow also modules abroad, as long, again, as you fulfill the requirements. So those are just a few general questions, frequently asked questions. You can ask some more afterwards, and you can get more information at the Architects Register, especially on the website, but you can also send an email and, or contact Mirjam Dalcanio and Joke Willekes.